I always knew that we were oppressed and that there were things that went on institutionally and in schools and things like that. But it was never like obvious to me or not really a huge factor to me. I came from a predominantly white high school. Like I had an own sense like of myself and I was culturally competent, but not as much as I should have been, and not as much as I want my sisters to be. So I understood like what was going on in terms of like social class and race and how social class and race like are correlated, but I didn't know like the details. It was just okay, yeah, I know it's there, but I can't see how it's affecting me. So it's kind of like this like apathy that I had in high school, this like ignorance or apathy that I had. I was in Com 131 with a teacher or a professor, and we had a speech project, and I think that I was the only minority in the class. And she said, "Come like it's an actual speech that you're giving to, I guess, yeah. So come and give an actual speech, whatever." So I'm thinking, you know what? If it's an actual speech, I need to dress up, do well, put everything into it. I know that I did a speech comparing LeBron James and Magic Johnson and like how the game of basketball has changed since LeBron James and Magic Johnson have been playing, or since Magic Johnson has played on to now with LeBron James. So I came into the classroom with a suit on, and I was, I thought I looked good, this, that, and the third. But then my class, like 4 of my other classmates that were girls, not the same skin complexion as me, came in with pajama pants and sweatpants and like t-shirts. I gave my speech. It was on time. It was correct. I had nothing wrong with it. No stuttering, no nothing. And I got a C. And they came in, didn't have anything like it was, their speeches were like really, really bad, and they got A's. And one girl came in and did a speech on tiramisu, and got an A+ on it. So it was just like, that was the first time where I actually saw it like firsthand, like, okay, well, this is what it is. Like, I have to work 2 times harder just to get the bare minimum. And some people may say that, oh, you're overreacting, oh, it wasn't that, maybe you just had a bad speech, but I felt that like vibe through the whole semester. But I mean, I'm not one to complain and say, you know what, she's prejudiced, she's this, that, and the third. I'm gonna work through it, cause like that's what I do. Like if you doubt me, I'm gonna just work through it. So yeah. Professor Emily Parker, it was philosophy 204, race, class, and gender. She's a young white female professor, and she's possibly one of the best professors that I've ever had, besides Matthew Durrington for culture anthropology. Both of those professors had the same semester, and I think that's when I became more aware, because we talked about the prison industrial complex, we talked about redlining, we talked about mass incarceration, we talked about vampires and how vampires lead to like sexual like things, and how vampires resemble like race and otherness, and like it was a whole bunch, and that really opened my eyes to like a whole bunch of things. So like learning that class made me go on to like explore, research like prisons and how prisons basically use their inmates as slaves, how urban education is a system used to disadvantage minority children in cities, in urban areas, Chicago, D.C., Baltimore, New York, and those 2 classes, like going back, I would take those classes over and over again. Like they were probably the 2 best classes I've ever taken in my life: Emily Parker and Matthew Durrington. The vampire one was interesting because when you walk into a race, class, and gender class, and your teacher says, or your professor says, "Today we're talking about vampires," you're like, "What?" and I didn't understand. Like for the first 2 weeks, I didn't understand what she was talking about. But then that discussion stuck with me because vampires resemble like minorities in a way. Like they were, it's just like the white America back in the day felt threatened by those who were of other skin color coming to America. So basically, when the vampires entered America, they were feeding on these white women and white males. So it was just they came and vampires look like you, they talk like you, they act like you, but they're something different about them, and that's when this otherness comes in. And the white America felt threatened because they felt like these minorities were feeding on them, not like literally feeding on them, but feeding on like their possessions, their jobs, and that mainly happened in Baltimore in the 1920s, where as we can see, the majority of the white population was in the city. But then once African Americans and Hispanics started entering the city, whites started moving out into the suburban areas. So as we see now, Baltimore County, Catonsville, Reisterstown, places like that, White Marsh, are all a heavily white populated area because they were cultured to move outside the city and stay out there, while the black population, as we see now, is still inside the city. And all the jobs and the money all the taxes that are being outsourced back into the counties are not coming back to the city. That's why the city is full of money, but then it's also broke at the same time. The first day of classes this year, I constructed an event called Blackout Towson it was mainly for freshmen so that they can see that Towson students acknowledge racial and social injustice that occur in America, so that the freshmen, because there are freshmen that came from schools where their voices can't be heard, where they were the minority, where they were the majority of the ethnicities there, but they had a different opinion than the rest of the majority, so their voices couldn't be heard. And it was just a space for us to learn and acknowledge that race is not dead. Racism is not dead. It's moved from a literal to an institutional, and that's that's the biggest problem. And the biggest thing that I wanted to convey to the students is that violence is violence. Just because I go to someone and hit them in their face does not mean that that's violence. But there's also institutional violence too. If I'm institutionally setting up for someone to be disadvantaged, to be to not the same resources, and setting someone up or a group of people up for failure, that's institutional violence. And we have to understand that violence isn't just the beating, the lynching, the hanging, the shooting. It's a lot of stuff. It's setting up people to be killed, to be disadvantaged, to not have the resources. We're definitely growing in education, because even now, like, my sister is starting a black student union at her high school that has never had a black student union. She's starting it. We're definitely there. We just have to organize more, and we can't become complacent. I feel like sometimes we can become complacent and say that, oh no, the next person will do it. Like, if you have the time, I'm not asking everyone to be an activist. I'm just asking to just acknowledge and support the cause, because whether you like it or not, you're being judged upon what you identify as. So you can say, oh, racism is, so any minority can say, oh, racism is dead, but that doesn't negate an oppressor oppressing you. That makes sense. So you can walk around saying racism is dead all you want, but people who are going to treat you like crap will treat you like crap regardless if you think racism is dead or not. So it's important to acknowledge what is occurring and get involved.